What if you could delete all your worries in just 3 minutes? Would you do it? Louise Hay discovered a mental reset button, a secret very few people know. And today you'll learn exactly how to use it. Have you ever noticed how your mind works like an old record player? It plays the same song of worry all day long. It starts when you wake up, and it's still playing when you go to sleep. It's like someone stuck a scratched record on repeat inside your head, and you can't turn it off. I know how you feel. Because I've been there. That feeling that your brain has become a machine for creating problems that don't even exist yet. You worry about what might go wrong tomorrow, what people will think, money you don't have, relationships that might end, children who might get hurt, jobs that might disappear. And the worst part is, you know these worries don't solve anything. In fact, they only create more anxiety, more insomnia, more tension in your body, more fear of the future. Louise Hay, the woman who transformed millions of lives with her discoveries about the power of the mind, said something that changed everything for me. She said, 90% of your worries will never happen, and the 10% that do happen, you'll handle in the moment. Think about that for a second. How many times have you spent entire days terrified of something that never even happened? How many nights have you lost sleep worrying about scenarios your mind invented? How many times have you created a storm in your head because of a tiny little cloud in the sky? Louise discovered something revolutionary while she was healing from cancer. She realized that the human mind has a factory defect. We're born, programmed to survive. And to survive, the primitive brain believes it needs to be constantly alert to danger. The problem is, today we don't have lions to run from, or enemy tribes to defend ourselves against, but the brain continues to function as if we did. So it creates imaginary lions, non-existent enemy tribes, dangers that exist only in our heads. And then you become a hostage of your own mind. It kidnaps you with thoughts that never stop. It tortures you with apocalyptic scenarios. It keeps you awake creating problems that don't exist. And you start to believe that this is just how it is, that worry is part of life, that anxiety is normal. But Louise Hay discovered that it's not. She realized there's a huge difference between useful thinking and destructive thinking. Useful thinking is when you identify a real problem and seek a solution. Destructive thinking is when you keep dwelling on something you can't control or that doesn't even exist yet. And her great revelation was this: you are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes the thoughts. This means you have power over them. You can choose which thoughts to nurture and which thoughts to cut off at the root. But how do you do this in practice? How do you disarm this mental time bomb that explodes with worries every 5 minutes? Louise developed a technique so simple it seems impossible to work. But it does. And I'm going to teach you right now. First, you need to understand that every worry is a story you tell yourself, a story about the future, a story about what could go wrong, a story you repeat so many times that you start to believe it's real. But what if I told you that you can rewrite that story? That you can replace the stuck record with a new song? That you can reprogram your mind's record player to play frequencies of peace instead of frequencies of fear? Louise called this mental cleansing. She said our minds are like computers, and when a computer gets slow, full of viruses and useless programs, what do? We clean it, we delete, we format, and we install new programs that actually work. The mind works exactly the same way. It's just that no one ever taught you how to do this cleaning. No one gave you the instruction manual for your own brain. You grew up thinking that thinking is like breathing, that it happens automatically and you have no control. But Louise proved that this is a lie. She cured herself of terminal cancer just by changing the way she thought. She deleted thoughts of hatred, resentment, and fear, and she installed thoughts of love, forgiveness, and gratitude. And her body responded. The cancer disappeared. Now, imagine what can happen when you apply this same technique to your worries. When you learn to turn off the alarm bell that rings in your head non-stop. When you can sleep peacefully knowing that tomorrow is not your enemy. Louise always said, peace of mind is not a luxury. It's your right. And only you can give yourself that gift. But why does our mind insist so much on worrying? Why does it seem addicted to creating problems? The answer lies in your childhood. Louise discovered that most of our adult worries are echoes of fears we learned when we were young. If you grew up in a house where there was a lot of tension, where there was a lack of money, where your parents argued about problems, your brain recorded a message. The world is dangerous. You need to always be worried to protect yourself. And even if you are now an adult, independent, capable of solving your own problems, this programming is still there, running in the background, keeping you on high alert even when there's nothing to worry about. It's as if you have a security system in your mind that has never been updated. It keeps triggering false alarms, waking you up in the middle of the night because it heard a little noise, making you tense because you saw a shadow that didn't even exist. Louise taught that to change this, you first need to recognize that this is happening. You need to catch your mind in the act when it starts creating these horror stories. And then, very gently, as if you were calming a frightened child, you need to say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but now I'm safe. You can relax." She used to say, "Treat your thoughts like they are little children. Some are very polite and helpful. Others are whiny and just want attention. You don't need to fight with the whiny ones. You just don't need to give them attention." And how do you do that? How do you stop feeding the thoughts that only hurt you? Louise developed a ritual she called the nightly mental cleanse. Every day before going to bed, she would take a pen and paper and write down all the worries that were hammering in her head. Everything. No filter, no judgment. Then she would take each worry and ask 3 magic questions. First question, is this something I can solve now? So the question is this really a problem? If the answer is yes, she'd write down a concrete action for the next day. If no, she'd move on to the second question. Second question, is this really likely to happen? Most of the time, the answer was no. Our minds love to create catastrophic scenarios that have, maybe, a 1% chance of actually happening. When she realized this, she'd cross the worry off the list. Third question, if it does happen, will I be able to cope? And here came the surprise. She always discovered that yes, she was stronger and more capable than she'd imagined, that she'd been through worse things and survived, that she had inner resources she didn't even know existed. This simple exercise did something revolutionary in her mind. It showed that most worries were ghosts, groundless fears, stories invented by the brain to keep her busy with false problems. And when you realize that, something shifts inside you. You stop being a victim of your own thoughts. You stop believing everything your mind says. You start to question, to filter, to consciously choose where to put your mental energy. Louise Hay said that our mind is like a garden. If you don't plant flowers, weeds will grow. If you don't consciously choose constructive thoughts, destructive ones will take over. And then, instead of a blooming garden, you'll have a barren wasteland full of weeds. But the good news is that you can change this at any time. It doesn't matter how long your mind has been infested with worries. It doesn't matter how many years you've spent feeding negative thoughts. You can start the cleansing today. And the most incredible thing is that the results appear quickly. Louise Hay always said that the mind is more obedient than we imagine. When you stop feeding bad thoughts, they begin to weaken. When you start nurturing good thoughts, they gain strength. It's like changing a dog's food. If you stop giving bad food and start giving good food, in a few days it becomes stronger, healthier, more energetic. It's the same with the mind. You change the food, it changes its behavior. But there's a secret that Louise Hay discovered, and that very few people know. A mental shortcut that can accelerate this entire cleansing process. A technique she developed after years of studying how the mind works. This technique, which I'm going to teach you now, is called the 3-minute mental reset. And Louise Hay used it every time she felt her mind starting to create unnecessary storms. Her discovery was simple but revolutionary. When you're worried, your breathing changes. It becomes short, shallow, accelerated. And when your breathing changes, your brain receives the signal that you're in danger. Then it triggers even more alert thoughts. It's a self-feeding cycle. But Louise Hay discovered that you can break this cycle in 3 minutes. Literally. She called it the mind mirror technique, because it works as if you were showing your brain the opposite of what it's creating. I'll teach you step by step. Write this down because it will change your life. First step, the moment you realize you're worried, stop everything you're doing. It doesn't matter where you are, at work, at home, in traffic. Stop and put your hand on your heart. Second step, breathe deeply 3 times. But it's not just any breathing. It's a specific breath that Louise Hay learned from Eastern masters. You inhale, counting to 4. Hold your breath, counting to 4. And exhale, counting to 8. Repeat 3 times. Why does this breathing work? Because it sends a direct signal to your nervous system that you are safe. The reptilian brain, which is responsible for fear reactions, only understands body language. When you breathe slowly and deeply, it understands. There is no danger here. You can relax. Third step. And here's the secret that Louise Hay discovered. After breathing, you're going to say a specific phrase. But it's not just any phrase. It's an affirmation that she tested for years and that has the power to reprogram your mind instantly. The phrase is this: my mind is calm, my heart is at peace, and I trust that everything is working out perfectly for my highest good. You repeat this phrase 3 times. Out loud if you're alone. Mentally if you're with other people. But it's essential that you feel each word. That you let them penetrate your nervous system as if they were a sacred medicine. Louise Hay discovered that this specific phrase works on 3 levels. First, it calms the conscious mind. The words, "my mind is calm," work as a direct order for the brain to stop creating fear scenarios. Second, it soothes the emotional heart. "My heart is at peace" is like hugging the inner child who is afraid and saying, "It's okay, you're safe." Third, it activates your connection with something greater. I trust that everything is working out perfectly. Is you surrendering control to life, to the universe, to God. It's you stopping trying to control everything and allowing solutions to come naturally. But Louise Hay did something extra that multiplied the power of this technique. After saying the phrase 3 times, she visualized her worry dissolving like sugar in water. She literally imagined the heavy thoughts melting and leaving her body through her breath. And then, in place of the worry, she put an image of peace. It could be herself smiling, sleeping peacefully, easily solving any situation. Always an image that represented the opposite of worry. The brain doesn't distinguish between reality and vivid imagination. When you create mental images of peace, it starts to produce well-being chemicals, endorphins, serotonin, dopamine. Literally, you are drugging your own brain with natural happiness substances. Louise Hay tested this technique thousands of times in situations of financial stress, relationship problems, health issues, worries about children, and it always worked. It didn't work to magically solve the problems, but it worked to clear the mind and create space for creative solutions to appear. She always said, "When your mind is agitated like muddy water, you can't see the bottom. When it calms down, clarity appears naturally, and with clarity come the answers." But there's an important detail. Louise Hay discovered that this technique works best when you practice it in moments of calm as well. It's not just for use in crises. It's to train your mind to recognize the state of peace as normal. She suggested doing the 3-minute mental reset at least once a day, even when everything was fine, preferably before bed. That way you'll be teaching your brain that peace is the natural state, not an exception. And there's more. Louise Hay noticed a specific time when our minds become more receptive to change, between 3 and 4 in the morning. She called it the hour of mental renewal. If you wake up worried during this time, it's the perfect moment to apply this technique. Why is 3 a.m. special? Because that's when brainwaves operate, at a frequency called theta, the same frequency as deep meditation and hypnosis. In this state, your subconscious mind is more open to receiving new programming. Often, you wake up anxious at this hour precisely because your unconscious mind is processing fears and worries instead of dwelling on them. Louise taught us to use this time for reprogramming, to install thoughts of peace in place of thoughts of fear. She shared that after a few weeks of practicing this technique, something incredible started happening. Worries stopped arriving with such intensity. It was as if she'd changed the Wi-Fi password of her mind. Negative thoughts tried to connect, but they couldn't anymore. And when they did, they lasted much less time. Instead of spending hours dwelling on a problem, she'd hit reset, and in 3 minutes, she was free. Instead of spending sleepless nights worrying, she slept peacefully, knowing she'd done her part, and the rest was out of her control. Louise always emphasized that worry is not love. Many mothers think worrying about their children is a demonstration of love. Many women think worrying about their husbands shows care. But Louise showed that it's the opposite. When you worry, you're sending energy of fear to the situation. You're vibrationally contributing to the very thing you don't want to happen. It's like praying for the problem instead of praying for the solution. True love, according to Louise, is trust. It's sending thoughts of protection, healing, and success. It's seeing the people you love being successful and happy, not facing the problems your mind invents. She used to say, if you want to help someone, Stop worrying about that person and start seeing them strong, capable, and protected. Your mind is an antenna. Transmit frequencies of well-being, not fear. And this applies to you too. Stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances. Stop imagining scenarios where you can't handle challenges. Start seeing yourself as the strong, wise woman you truly are. Someone who always finds a way, who always gets back up, who always survives and thrives. Louise had a personal story that proved this. She was abused as a child, dropped out of school, went through toxic relationships, became penniless, and developed cancer. If anyone had reason to live worried, it was her. But instead of surrendering to the role of victim, she decided to become the protagonist of her own healing. She used every difficult experience as fuel to develop techniques of mental transformation. And when she shared these techniques with the world, millions of people healed along with her. Her message was clear. You are not what happened to you. You are what you decide to do with what happened to you. And that decision starts in your mind, with the thoughts you choose to nourish every day. So, every time your mind starts creating storms, remember, you have the power to change the internal climate. In 3 minutes, you can get out of the hurricane and into the calm. In 3 minutes, you can replace fear with peace. Louise always ended her talks with a phrase that became her trademark. You don't need to carry the world on your shoulders. The world has its own shoulders. Your only responsibility is to keep your heart at peace and your mind in harmony. The rest will resolve itself. And it's true. When you stop spending energy worrying about things you can't control, you have energy left over to focus on what really matters. Creativity to find solutions, love to nourish relationships, joy to enjoy life. The technique I've taught you today isn't just for times of crisis. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of relating to your own thoughts in a more conscious and loving way. Louise Hay lived to be 90 years old, with a lucid mind and a peaceful heart. She proved that it's possible to age without becoming a prisoner of worries. That it's possible to have a serene mind even in a chaotic world. And she left this legacy for you. This technology of inner peace that works regardless of your external situation. That works whether you have money or not, whether you're in a relationship or not, whether you have perfect health or not. Because true peace doesn't depend on circumstances. It depends on your ability to keep your mind in the right place. And now you know exactly how to do that. If this video reached you today, it wasn't by accident. It's because you were ready to receive this information, to transform your relationship with your own thoughts, to finally have the remote control of your own mind. Louise used to say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And sometimes, the teacher appears disguised as a YouTube video, a simple technique that can change your whole life. Your journey of mental liberation begins now. You no longer need to be a prisoner of your own thoughts. You have the key to freedom. Use it. Your mental peace is waiting for you. If this message touched your heart, if you felt it was exactly what you needed to hear today, don't let this knowledge get lost. Subscribe to the channel, because you deserve to have access to more content that will continue to nourish your inner transformation. Louise Hay always said, "The time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The time to conquer your mental peace is now. Your new life is starting today."